The night was calm over Pine Valley Forest. The sky was clear, filled with stars that looked like tiny sparks of light. Most people in the nearby town were asleep, unaware that their peaceful night was about to change forever. Sergeant Daniel Hayes was sitting inside his patrol jeep at the forest edge. He was tired after a long shift, sipping cold coffee and listening to the soft sound of crickets. Nothing unusual ever happened here. Pine Valley was a quiet, safe place, almost boring. But then, the sky lit up. At first, Daniel thought it was a shooting star. A bright streak of silver moved across the darkness. But the light grew bigger, brighter, and much faster. "What on earth is that?" he whispered. The streak suddenly shook, breaking into pieces of glowing debris. A loud roaring sound echoed across the forest. Birds flew out of the trees in panic. Then it happened. Boom. A massive explosion flashed deep inside the forest. The ground trembled under Daniel's jeep. A shockwave rolled through the trees, shaking branches and scattering leaves everywhere. Daniel's heart jumped. "That wasn't a meteor," he said, starting the engine. He grabbed his radio. "This is Sergeant Hayes. Something just crashed in Pine Valley. Possible aircraft, maybe foreign. I'm heading in." But before anyone could reply, the radio crackled with static and went silent. Into the dark forest. Daniel drove fast down the dirt path, his headlights slicing through the darkness. The air smelled of smoke. The sky glowed orange between the trees. His jeep reached a point where fallen branches blocked the road. He stopped, grabbed his flashlight and continued on foot. The deeper he walked, the stranger things became. The air felt heavy. The trees were burned. Pieces of glowing metal were scattered everywhere, sharp, curved, and unlike anything he had ever seen. Daniel crouched, touching one of the metal fragments. It was warm. Too warm. And the surface was smooth like liquid glass. "What kind of aircraft is this?" he muttered. But then he saw something ahead, bright blue light flashing between the trees. His heart raced. He moved carefully, keeping low. The forest was silent now. Even the insects had stopped making noise. He stepped into a clearing. And froze. The crash site. In the middle of the clearing lay a huge wreck. Metal twisted like melted steel. Sparks flickered from broken panels. Smoke rose into the night sky. But it wasn't an airplane. Or a drone. Or a satellite. Daniel knew instantly. This was not human. The shape was smooth and curved, almost organic. The hull had strange glowing marks like veins. Blue energy pulsed weakly from the broken engine. His breath caught in his throat. "Is this a spaceship?" He stepped closer, shining his flashlight across the wreck. The inside looked shattered. Wires and strange crystal rods hung out like broken bones. Then he heard a sound. A soft, frightened whimper. Daniel spun around, pointing his flashlight at the source. His blood went cold. The refugees. 3 small figures stood near the edge of the wreck. Their thin bodies shook. Their skin glowed faintly in blue patterns like bioluminescent tattoos. Their eyes were large and bright, reflecting fear and exhaustion. They weren't monsters. They weren't soldiers. They looked lost, wounded, terrified. One of them, smaller than the others, maybe a child, took a weak step forward and collapsed. Daniel rushed toward them without thinking. Hey, it's okay," he said, holding up his empty hands to show he meant no harm. The aliens backed away, trembling. They made soft clicking noises, hugging each other. Daniel slowly lowered himself to the ground, trying not to scare them. "It's okay, you're hurt," he said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The smallest alien looked up, blinking its glowing eyes. It reached out a shaking hand. Daniel gently touched its arm. Its skin was warm, and humming with a strange energy. The alien whispered something in a soft voice. Daniel didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. "Help, please." He nodded. "You're safe," he said. "I'll protect you." The signal that shouldn't have been sent. Behind him, the wreckage sparked violently. A broken console flashed red. Daniel turned, watching as strange symbols ran across the screen. A loud pulse shot into the sky, a beam of blue energy that disappeared among the stars. Daniel stepped back, startled. What did it just do? The aliens reacted instantly. All 3 looked up at the sky in terror. Their glowing skin dimmed with fear. The smallest one spoke again, but this time Daniel understood a single word through its tone. "Hunters." The air grew cold. Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. Something else was coming. Something dangerous. And whatever it was, the crash had just alerted it. Humanity's first choice. Daniel looked at the frightened refugees. Their bodies were shaking, refusing to move closer to the ship. They were not invaders. Not attackers. Just runaways. Lost. Hurt. Desperate. He looked at the glowing sky, feeling danger approaching. Then he made a choice. A choice that would change Earth forever. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around the smallest alien's shoulders. Then he raised his radio again. "This is Sergeant Hayes," he said firmly. "I found survivors. Not human. They're scared. They need help. I repeat, we're not leaving them behind." Static crackled back. But this time the signal connected. "Copy that, Sergeant. Reinforcements inbound." Daniel breathed out. "Stay with me," he told the refugees. "No one will harm you. Not while I'm here." The refugees looked at him with wide, hopeful eyes. And for the first time they felt safe. But in the cold sky above them, something else had already started moving. Something that had no intention of letting these refugees live. Reinforcement vehicles rushed through Pine Valley, their red and blue lights flashing between the trees. Helicopters circled above, shining bright beams onto the crash site. The quiet forest had become a battlefield of smoke, lights, and fear. Sergeant Daniel Hayes stood in front of the 3 alien refugees, keeping himself between them and the approaching soldiers. The smallest alien still held onto his arm, trembling. "It's all right," Daniel whispered. "These people are friends." But even he wasn't sure how the others would react. The first group of soldiers arrived, weapons raised, faces tense and unsure. Lieutenant Morgan stepped forward. His expression changed instantly when he saw the aliens. "What in the world?" Morgan muttered. "Sergeant, what did you bring us into?" Daniel lifted a hand to stop him from coming too close. "They're harmless," Daniel said. "They're scared and hurt. We need medics, not rifles." The soldiers exchanged confused looks. Some lowered their weapons. Others kept them raised, unsure if these creatures were a threat. The aliens huddled together, frightened by every movement. One soldier whispered, "Sir, they look like kids." Daniel nodded. "Exactly." Attempting to communicate. A medic finally arrived with equipment and a calm voice. "My name is Dr. Lena Carter. I won't hurt you," she said gently. She knelt slowly, her hands open to show she had no weapon. The oldest refugee, tallest among them, with glowing blue lines on his arms, watched her with cautious eyes. He lifted his hand and pointed to his chest. "Relon," he said softly. Dr. Carter blinked. "Is that your name?" The alien nodded. Then he pointed to the smallest one, the one Daniel was holding. "Tilly, small one," Relon said. The child clung closer to Daniel's jacket. "And I'm Daniel," he said, tapping his chest like Relon did. Relon repeated carefully, "Dan-ile." Their voice was soft, musical, filled with fear and gratitude. It was the first moment of trust. The enemy's shadow. Suddenly, one of the soldiers shouted from behind the wreck. "Lieutenant, we found something." Everyone rushed to the broken console glowing faintly with alien symbols. The screen still blinked with red alerts. Morgan frowned. "What is this thing doing?" The medic translated Relon's gestures. Relon pointed up at the sky. Then he crossed his arms in an X shape. Then he pointed at the console. Daniel understood first. "It sent a signal," he whispered. "A distress signal." Relon shook his head violently. "Not distress," he said slowly, struggling with human words. "Hunters." The translation struck Daniel like a punch. It alerted the ones hunting them. Lieutenant Morgan stared upward, fear forming in his eyes. "How far away are these hunters?" Relon lowered his head. "Close." The forest trembles again. Before anyone could react, a strange sound rolled across the sky, deep, metallic, almost like a roar vibrating through the air. Every soldier froze. Helicopter pilots shouted over the radios. "Command. Unidentified objects approaching Earth's atmosphere. Fast. Multiple signatures. They're not human. Prepare for impact." Daniel looked at the aliens. Tilly, the small one, covered their ears and began shaking violently. Dr. Carter reached out to comfort them. "It's okay, little one, it's okay." But Relon grabbed Daniel's sleeve. "Protect Tilly," he whispered. "Please." Daniel stepped forward, placing himself as a shield in front of the refugees. He didn't know why he felt responsible. He didn't know why these aliens trusted him. He didn't know what the hunters wanted. But he knew one thing. He wasn't going to let anything hurt them. Orders from command. Morgan's radio crackled. "Lieutenant, listen carefully," a voice said from HQ. "Satellite scans show unknown craft entering the atmosphere. You must extract the refugees immediately." Morgan looked at Daniel. You heard them. We need to get them out of here. Now. Daniel nodded. I'll help them move. Rilan shook his head weakly. No, run, not enough. He pointed at the sky again. They follow, always. Daniel understood the fear in his voice. They weren't just being hunted. They were being collected. Tracked. Claimed. And Earth had just stepped between predator and prey. The first attack. A blinding flash tore across the sky. Trees shook violently. Something enormous cut through the clouds, dark, metallic, and silent. Then, Karargoam. A beam of energy shot into the forest, striking the ground only 100 meters away. Dirt exploded upward. Soldiers fell to the ground, covering their heads. Tilly screamed. Rilan shielded the youngest alien with his body. Daniel grabbed Morgan. We need to move them now. Morgan shouted, all units, fall back. Form a defensive line around the refugees. More beams struck nearby, shaking the earth. The hunters had arrived. But they weren't firing at the humans. They were targeting the refugees directly. Rilan struggled to stand. They want us, he said weakly. Take us, alive. Daniel clenched his jaw. Over my dead body, he muttered. Humanity's decision. The soldiers formed a protective circle around the 3 refugees. Weapons raised. Eyes sharp. Determination burning. Daniel looked around at the men and women standing with him. They didn't know these aliens. They didn't owe them anything. They weren't prepared. But they refused to let innocence be taken. He leaned down beside Rilan and said softly, you're safe now. We won't let them harm you. Rilan stared at him with wide, glowing eyes full of confusion. Why? He asked quietly. Daniel gave a small, tired smile. Because that's what humans do. Above them, bright lights descended through the clouds. The first hunter strike team landing. Earth had taken its stand. And the real fight was about to begin. The night sky tore open as the enemy ship descended. Its metal surface looked like dark armor, shaped like a giant claw reaching toward the earth. Red lights pulsed across its hull, scanning the forest below. Every soldier felt the pressure in the air. As if something powerful had just set its eyes on them. Daniel pushed Tilly behind him while gripping his rifle tighter. The small alien trembled, gripping Daniel's leg with shaking hands. Lieutenant Morgan shouted orders. All units. Defensive positions. Keep the refugees in the center. The soldiers spread out around the crash site, forming a tight circle. Their boots dug into the soft dirt. Their weapons glowed in the dark. Their hearts pounded in their chests. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, thump, thump, thump. Something heavy landed in the trees not far away. Branches snapped. Leaves flew through the air. The ground trembled with every step. Dr. Carter whispered, What is that? Rilan answered in a low, fearful voice. Hunters, trackers, they find us. He pointed toward the darkness between the trees. They never stop. The first hunter reveals itself. A shape stepped out from the shadows. Was huge. Almost 7 feet tall, with armor like black bone and eyes glowing a deep red. Its body was covered in sharp, metallic plates that looked grown, not built. Its long claws shined under the helicopter lights. It moved slowly, confidently, scanning the humans like they were nothing more than grass. One soldier whispered, That's not possible. Another stepped back, trembling. Is that thing alive or a machine? Rilan answered softly. Both. The hunter tilted its head, examining the soldiers. Then its gaze locked on Tilly. Tilly whimpered and hid behind Daniel again. The hunter pointed at the refugees and growled something in a harsh, metallic language. Rilan's face turned pale. It says, Return the marked ones. Morgan whispered, Marked? For what? Rilan swallowed. For collection. Daniel stepped forward. Well, they're not getting collected today. The hunter tests humanity. The hunter raised one hand and its claws split open, revealing a glowing weapon. Soldiers aimed their rifles. Don't move. Morgan yelled. Fire only if it attacks. But the hunter didn't shoot. Instead, it took a single step forward. Daniel raised his weapon at the creature's head. That's close enough, he said. The hunter stopped. Its red eyes locked on Daniel. It scanned him slowly, almost studying him. Then it spoke in broken, deep English. Its voice echoing unnaturally. You protect prey? Daniel nodded without fear. Yes. The hunter tilted its head again. Why die for them? Daniel didn't blink. Because they're not prey. They're children. The hunter slowly opened its jaws, revealing rows of sharp metallic teeth. It wasn't a smile. It was confusion. "This is new," the hunter said. "The attack begins." In a flash, the hunter lifted its arm. A blast of red energy shot through the air and struck a tree behind the soldiers, exploding it into fire and splinters. The soldiers flinched but didn't move from their line. "Weapons free," Morgan shouted. Gunfire lit the forest. Bullets struck the hunter's armor, sparking off the plates. It stumbled back, surprised by the resistance. Another 3 hunters dropped from the trees and joined the first one. Now there were 4. One soldier whispered in panic, "We can't take all of them." Morgan bared his teeth. "We're not leaving the refugees behind." Relon grabbed Daniel's arm. "Not fight, run, must run." Daniel shook his head. "You run. We hold them off." Relon stared at him, shocked. "You fight, for us? You don't even know us." Daniel's voice was strong. "We know enough. Humans strike back." The battle exploded around them. Grenades went off, lighting the forest in yellow flashes. Hunters leaped through the smoke, claws slicing the air. Soldiers rolled, dodged, and fired again and again. One hunter charged straight toward T. Daniel didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward, slamming into the hunter with all his strength. The impact threw both of them to the ground. The hunter roared and swung its claws, missing Daniel by inches. Daniel fired point-blank into its face. The creature screeched, shaking violently, sparks flying from its armor. It wasn't dead, but it was stunned. Tilly crawled to Daniel, crying softly. "Daniel." Daniel grabbed the small alien and ran back behind the defensive line. Morgan shouted, "They're regrouping. Get ready." The hunters formed a tight formation, preparing for a second attack. Their leader roared, the sound vibrating through the entire forest. A desperate escape plan. Dr. Carter crouched beside Relon. "Is there any safe place for you? Anywhere you can hide?" Relon nodded weakly. "Crash, pot, broken. But inside is shard key. It opens, safe route." Morgan overheard. "Where's the shard key?" Relon pointed at the burning wreck. "Inside the broken alien ship." Daniel looked at the smoking debris. A hunter blast had made it unstable. Going inside was almost suicide. But without the shard key, the refugees had nowhere to flee. The hunters would keep coming. And Earth would be dragged into a war it didn't understand. Daniel took a deep breath. "I'll get it." Tilly grabbed his sleeve, shaking his head. "Danger." Daniel smiled gently. "It's okay. I've been in danger before." Morgan put a hand on Daniel's shoulder. "You go in, we cover you." Daniel nodded and sprinted toward the burning wreck. Behind him, the hunters roared and charged. Morgan raised his rifle and shouted, "All units, hold the line. Protect Daniel. Protect the refugees." Gunfire exploded again. Daniel disappeared into the flames. And the battle for survival grew even more desperate. Daniel entered the burning wreck of the alien ship with his arm covering his face. Smoke stung his eyes. Sparks jumped from broken wires. Metal groaned above him, ready to collapse at any moment. He moved quickly, scanning every corner with the small flashlight mounted to his rifle. "Come on, where is it?" he whispered. Relon had said the shard key was inside a storage chamber near the back. Daniel pushed forward, stepping over shattered glass screens and melted panels. Flames crawled along the walls like hungry animals. A loud crack echoed through the ship. Daniel froze. Part of the ceiling collapsed behind him, sealing the entrance. He was trapped inside. Outside, the battle grew louder. The roars of the hunters mixed with the gunfire of the soldiers. Daniel swallowed hard. There was no turning back now. The hunters pushed forward. Outside the wreck, the hunters had doubled their attack. Their movements were more coordinated, more aggressive. They weren't testing anymore. They were hunting. One hunter leaped over a rock and slammed into a soldier's shield, bending the metal plate in half. Another tore through a tree trunk with a single swipe of its claws. Lieutenant Morgan shouted, "Hold the line. Don't let them break the circle." A soldier next to him reloaded shakily. "These things don't stop. They don't even slow down." Morgan fired a burst at a charging hunter. "That's why we don't stop either." The hunters moved in a deadly rhythm. 2 attacked from the front while 2 circled behind, their red eyes glowing through the smoke. Dr. Carter pulled T. and the other small refugees behind a fallen log. "Stay low. Don't look. Don't run." T. shook violently, watching the humans fight for them. They didn't understand. Why would anyone risk their life for strangers? Inside the wreck, the shard key. Daniel reached the back chamber. The door had melted halfway, creating a narrow opening. He squeezed through, scraping his shoulders against the sharp metal. Inside, a small glowing container floated above a broken platform. The shard key. It looked like a crystal shard filled with stars. Tiny lights swirled inside it like a miniature galaxy. Daniel stepped forward, and the ship shook violently. The ceiling above him began to split. He grabbed the shard key and stuffed it into his vest. But when he turned to leave, a huge shadow blocked the exit. A hunter. It had followed him inside. Daniel backed away slowly, gripping his rifle. That's not good. The hunter crouched low, claws extended, ready to pounce. Daniel fired a full burst into the creature's chest. The bullets sparked off the armor but slowed the hunter enough for him to dive aside. The hunter lunged, claws slicing through the air where Daniel had stood. Daniel rolled across the floor. The hunter struck again, smashing a metal beam above Daniel's head. Fire exploded from a ruptured pipe. Daniel knew he had seconds before the whole wreck collapsed. He jumped onto a slanted piece of metal, grabbed a hanging cable, and swung past the hunter toward the opening. The hunter roared and chased after him. Daniel slid under the broken doorway and sprinted through the corridor as the hunter's claws slashed behind him. The collapse. As Daniel reached the exit, the wreck groaned loudly. "Daniel!" a soldier shouted from outside. Daniel leaped through the opening. Behind him, the hunter tried to follow. But the entire wreck collapsed inward with a deafening crash. Fire erupted upward like a wave. Metal folded in on itself, trapping the hunter inside. Daniel hit the ground hard, coughing, gripping the shard key tightly. Morgan grabbed his arm and pulled him to his feet. "You got it?" Daniel nodded and held up the glowing shard. Morgan exhaled. "Good. Then we still have a chance." But the victory lasted only 1 second. Because 3 new hunters emerged from the darkness of the trees. Bigger. Heavily armored. Their red eyes glowing hotter than before. Dr. Carter gasped. "They're adapting." Rilan's voice shook. "These are elite, real hunters." Teely grabbed Daniel's sleeve. "Run, please run." Daniel gently patted his head. "No. We stand. Humanity's line in the sand." Morgan stepped forward, facing the new hunters. His voice was deep, strong, unshaken. "You want the refugees?" He pointed at the ground. "Then you get through us first." The hunters paused, their red eyes narrowing. As if confused. As if surprised that the humans were still resisting. One of the elite hunters stepped forward and growled. "Why I defend weak ones? They're nothing." Morgan lifted his rifle. "They're in danger. That's enough." The hunter studied him. "You choose death." Morgan smirked. "We choose responsibility." The hunters roared and rushed forward. Morgan shouted, "All units, fire." The entire defensive circle erupted with gunfire, lasers, grenades, and smoke. The forest lit up like a battlefield from another world. Human soldiers moved like a single machine, covering each other, pulling injured teammates back, reloading for the ones who ran out, never leaving a gap, never giving the refugees an opening to be exposed. The hunters pushed harder, but the humans pushed back harder. For every step the hunters gained, another soldier took a stand. For every claw strike, a shield was raised. For every roar, a shout of courage answered. The refugees watched, stunned. They had seen many species across the galaxy, but none like this. None who would fight for strangers. None who would die for strangers. None who would protect the weak simply because it was right. A path to escape. Rilan crawled toward Daniel. "Shard key must be activated. If we activate, safe path opens, through the valley, no hunters can follow." Daniel nodded. "What do I do?" Rilan pointed at a circular marking on the shard. "Press here. But only when we move, together." Daniel glanced at the battlefield. The soldiers were exhausted. The hunters were getting stronger. They couldn't hold the line forever. Daniel made his decision. "We move now." Morgan heard him and shouted to the unit, "Prepare to move. Protect the refugees. We fall back together." The hunters heard the command and roared, charging forward for a final push. Daniel held the shard key tightly. This was it. The choice that would decide everything. The battle in the forest had turned into chaos. Smoke curled through the air. Hunters roared from all sides. Human soldiers fought with everything they had left. Daniel held the shard key tightly, feeling it vibrate in his hand. The crystal inside pulsed with tiny lights, like a beating heart trying to warn him. Rilan tugged on his arm. "We must move, now. The valley, that is safety. But the shard key needs activation." Daniel nodded. Tell me how. But before Rilan could answer, the ground shook beneath them. A massive hunter, larger than any before, stepped out from the smoke. Its armor was thicker. Its claws were long and shaped like scythes. Its eyes blazed a violent red, brighter than all the others. Every soldier froze. Even the other hunters stepped back slightly as if giving this new creature respect, or fear. Rilan whispered, trembling. That is the prime hunter, the one who leads the hunt. Tilly hid behind Daniel. Dr. Carter's eyes widened. Morgan gripped his rifle with both hands. The prime hunter scanned the battlefield and then spoke in a deep, crackling voice that echoed like thunder. Humans, you cannot protect them. Morgan stepped forward, refusing to show fear. We'll see about that. The prime hunter tilted its head. You fight for the weak. Why? Daniel answered before anyone else. Because they came here for help. The hunter's eyes narrowed. They are not refugees. They are fugitives, criminals, thieves. Rilan gasped. Lies. We did nothing. The prime hunter continued. They stole forbidden energy. Power that belongs to the Empire. Daniel looked at Rilan. What is he talking about? Rilan lowered his head. His voice was soft, filled with guilt. We did not steal, but we carry something. Something rare. Something powerful. Tilly held his small glowing necklace, the same faint light Daniel had seen before. Dr. Carter realized the truth. That energy source, inside your bodies, that's what they want. Rilan nodded slowly. Our people are born with it. We did not choose. It is just who we are. The prime hunter raised its claws. Return them. Now. Or the humans die first. The refugees began to sob. Soldiers tightened their grip on weapons. Daniel stepped in front of the refugees, blocking the hunter's path. No one is giving anyone to you. The prime hunter stared at him for several seconds. Then it growled. Then you will fall with them. The prime hunter attacks. It moved faster than anything Daniel had ever seen. 1 second it stood still. The next it charged forward like a black missile. Morgan yelled, Scatter. The soldiers dove aside. The prime hunter smashed into the ground where they had stood, creating a crater. The shockwave threw Daniel backward. He rolled across the dirt, clutching the shard key. When he got up, the prime hunter was already charging again. Its claws slashed the earth, cutting deep trenches. Daniel barely dodged. A soldier wasn't fast enough. The hunter's strike sent him flying into a tree. Dr. Carter cried out, We can't fight that thing. Morgan shouted, We don't stop. We hold the line. The prime hunter moved toward the refugees. Rilan screamed, Stay away. Tilly's necklace began to glow brightly. A soft blue light that cut through the smoke. The prime hunter hesitated. Then it growled. That light, yes. The core energy. The child carries the purest form. Tilly whimpered and pressed closer to Daniel. Daniel lifted his rifle. You're not touching him. The prime hunter growled in annoyance. You protect them, but you don't understand them. Then explain, Daniel said. The prime hunter pointed at the refugees. They are not harmless. Their energy grows stronger with time. It can destroy systems, fleets, even planets. Dr. Carter shook her head. Then teach them control. Train them. Don't hunt them. The prime hunter's eyes glowed harder. They refused. They ran. And now they must be collected before they become a threat. Rilan shouted, We ran because the Empire wanted to use our children as weapons. Silence fell for a moment. Even the battle around them slowed. As if the truth shocked both sides. Daniel looked at the small aliens. They weren't soldiers. They weren't weapons. They were just frightened families trying to survive. He tightened his grip on the shard key. Well, they're safe here. And they're not going anywhere with you. The prime hunter roared. Then you choose death. The hidden energy. The prime hunter charged, claws raised. Daniel braced himself. But before the hunter reached them, a bright pulse exploded from Tilly's necklace. A wave of blue energy spread across the forest like a silent shockwave. The prime hunter stopped mid-charge. Its armor flickered. Its claws cracked. Its red eyes dimmed for a moment. The surrounding hunters froze too. Their bodies shook as if something inside them was shutting down. Dr. Carter whispered, What was that? Rilan stared at Tilly with wide eyes. The child activated the inner energy. That is why the Empire wants them. Tilly looked terrified, not proud. I didn't mean. I didn't want to hurt. Daniel knelt down and held him gently. You didn't hurt us. You saved us. The prime hunter slowly stood again, armor still shaking. You see, Why they must be taken. Their power is unstoppable. Daniel rose to his feet. No. Their power is uncontrollable. That's different. And we'll help them control it. Not you. The Prime Hunter hissed. You are fools. Morgan shouted to Daniel. Do it. Activate the shard key. Now. Daniel held up the glowing crystal. Relon yelled, press the center seal. Daniel pressed it. The shard key exploded with bright light. A shimmering doorway began to open in the valley. A glowing path of safety known only to the refugees. The Prime Hunter roared in fury. No. They will not escape. The final push. The hunters charged in full force. The soldiers formed a tight wall in front of the refugees. Morgan screamed. Protect the path. Don't let a single hunter through. Bullets, lasers, and explosions lit the night. Hunters crashed against shields and dug claws into the ground. Daniel grabbed Teely and shouted to Relon. Move. Get through the path. The refugees ran toward the shimmering doorway. Daniel turned to Morgan. You ready? Morgan grinned through the smoke. Let's make a stand. The hunters charged. The humans charged back. And the fight for survival reached its peak. The valley glowed with a strange, shimmering light as the shard key opened the hidden pathway. The air rippled like water, forming a large circular gate. Blue and silver waves moved across it, calling the refugees toward safety. But safety was still far away. Because between the valley and the refugees stood hunters. Dozens of them. Charging with full force. Lieutenant Morgan raised his rifle and shouted. Hold the line. Do not let them reach the valley. The soldiers formed a defensive wall, shoulder to shoulder. Smoke covered their boots. Sweat rolled down their faces. Their weapons shook in their hands not from fear, but from exhaustion. Daniel stood at the center of the formation, protecting Teely and the other refugees behind him. The Prime Hunter stepped forward with heavy, thunderous steps. Its armor had cracked from Teely's energy pulse, but it was still powerful. Its claws glowed red. Its eyes burned like coals. It raised its head and roared. A roar so loud the ground trembled. Teely covered his ears and cried. Relon pulled him close and whispered. Don't look back. Just stay behind Daniel. Daniel took a deep breath. All right, he whispered to himself. Let's end this. The enemy charges. The hunters surged forward like a dark wave. Branches snapped. Rocks split beneath their claws. Their red eyes burned through the smoke. Morgan shouted the command. Fire. The forest exploded with gunfire. Machine guns rattled. Rifles cracked. Grenades boomed. Energy pulses flashed blue in the night. The front hunters stumbled from the impact, their armor denting and sparking. But they kept coming. One soldier yelled, They're not slowing down. Another reloaded and screamed. Then we don't slow down either. Daniel fired burst after burst, aiming at weak points, joints, eyes, cracks in armor. One hunter fell, then another. But for every hunter that dropped, two more took its place. The Prime Hunter leaped over fallen bodies and smashed into the soldiers' front line. Shields bent. Men fell. The earth cracked beneath its weight. Morgan stepped forward, aiming his rifle at the creature's head. Come on then. Let's dance. The Prime Hunter swung its claws. Morgan dodged, rolled, and fired again. But the hunter was faster. It grabbed Morgan by the vest and lifted him into the air. Daniel shouted, Let him go. He ran toward them, firing nonstop. The Prime Hunter turned, annoyed, and tossed Morgan aside like a rag doll. Morgan crashed into a tree and fell to the ground, unconscious. Daniel's eyes widened with rage. He stood between the Prime Hunter and the refugees. You're not getting past me. Humanity refuses to break. The soldiers, despite injuries and fear, closed ranks again. One soldier dragged Morgan back. Another shielded Dr. Carter as she carried a wounded refugee child. Every human fought like their life, and honor, depended on it. The Prime Hunter charged. Daniel blocked it with a blast from his rifle. The hunter stumbled. Daniel shouted, Fall back slowly. Protect the refugees as they move through the path. Relon nodded. We will run, but you must give us time. Daniel grinned tiredly. We'll give you all the time you need. The refugees began moving toward the shimmering gate. Hunters roared and pushed harder. The Prime Hunter swung its massive arm, knocking two soldiers aside. Dr. Carter screamed. Daniel fired again, but the hunter closed the distance too quickly. It struck Daniel across the chest. He flew backwards, hitting the ground hard. Tilly screamed, Daniel? Daniel gasped but forced himself up, blood trickling down his forehead. I'm not done. The power of the shard key. The shard key glowed wildly in Daniel's vest as if reacting to the battle. Relon crawled toward him. Daniel, give me the shard key. I can open the path wider, faster. Daniel pulled it out, hesitating only a second. Do it. Relon touched the crystal. A sudden burst of blue light shot into the sky. The pathway widened. Light bending trees shaking the ground. Hunter stepped back, confused by the sudden force. The Prime Hunter roared in anger. They will not escape. I will not allow it. It ran toward Relon. Daniel didn't think, he just moved. He tackled the Prime Hunter from the side, slamming into its armored body. The impact sent both of them rolling through the dirt. The hunter lashed out, claws slicing the air inches from Daniel's throat. Daniel grabbed a broken rifle from the ground and jammed the barrel between the hunter's jaws, forcing it back. But the hunter was too strong. It ripped the weapon apart with its teeth and lifted Daniel by the throat. You are weak, the hunter growled. Daniel gagged, struggling. His vision blurred. His legs kicked helplessly. Behind him, Tilly cried, "Leave him alone." The Prime Hunter turned its red eyes toward Tilly. That one is the key. A child's courage. Tilly stepped forward, shaking. He raised his tiny hands. The necklace around his neck glowed. Relon shouted, terrified, "No, Tilly. You cannot control it fully." But Tilly didn't stop. He looked at Daniel. The human who had protected him, held him, comforted him. The human who had said he was safe. Tilly whispered, "Let him go." The Prime Hunter laughed. "Child, your power cannot." A blue-white pulse exploded from Tilly. It wasn't violent like before. It was focused. Controlled for the first time. The energy hit the Prime Hunter directly in the chest. Its armor cracked. Its claws sparked. Its eyes flickered wildly. The hunter dropped Daniel. Daniel hit the ground, coughing. The Prime Hunter staggered back, shaking. What is this power? Tilly trembled, tears running down his face. He hadn't meant to kill. He had meant to protect. Daniel pulled himself up, put a hand on Tilly's shoulder and whispered, "You did good." The final retreat. Relon screamed, "Through the path. Go now." The refugees rushed into the glowing gateway. Dr. Carter helped them. Soldiers covered them. Daniel held the rear. The Prime Hunter tried to stand, but its armor was failing. "You cannot escape." Daniel raised his rifle. "We already did." He fired a final burst into the hunter's cracked chest. The creature collapsed. The hunters roared in frustration as the last humans and refugees stepped into the shimmering path. The light grew brighter. Then everything went white. The battlefield was silent for a moment. Smoke floated through the air like dark fog. Burned trees stood like broken towers. The alien refugees huddled behind the Terran defense lines, shaking, tired, and scared. They had never seen a planet fight for them like this. Commander Hale stood at the center, armor cracked, visor covered in dust. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. His soldiers stood beside him, hurt, bleeding but still holding their ground. In the sky, the enemy fleet hovered like giant shadows waiting to strike again. Everyone knew. This next attack would decide everything. The alien refugees, small, soft-skinned, glowing with faint blue light, looked toward Hale with wide eyes. Lyra, their young leader, took a step forward. Why do you protect us?" she asked in a weak voice. "We are strangers. You owe us nothing." Hale looked at her for a long moment. Then he answered simply, "Because you needed help." Lyra blinked. Everyone from her group stared in silence. No species in the galaxy had ever helped them without payment, without political benefit, or without expecting something in return. They had only known fear, running, and survival. But humanity was different. Captain Arden joined Hale. Her arm was injured, but her voice was steady. "You crashed here by accident," she said. "But once you landed, you became our responsibility." Lyra shook her head in disbelief. "Even with the enemy fleet above you? Even if they destroy your world?" "Especially then," Hale replied. The answer shocked her. Before she could speak again, the sky lit up. Red beams fired from the enemy battleships, ripping through the clouds. The second attack had begun. Terran soldiers spread out. "Defense grid active," someone shouted. Energy shields flickered to life over the human front lines. They were weaker now. Many towers were damaged from the first battle, but they still stood strong. Hale raised his voice. "Hold your positions. Earth does not fall today." The ground shook as explosions landed near them. Dirt and stone blasted into the air. The alien refugees screamed and crouched low, but human soldiers quickly moved to cover them with their own bodies. Even in chaos, humans protected them. Lyra watched in awe as a soldier pushed her behind a shield. "Stay safe," the soldier yelled even though he himself was trembling. Her chest tightened. She whispered to herself, "No one has ever risked so much for us." The enemy fleet lowered toward the planet, preparing for a massive ground invasion. Dropships opened like metal claws, ready to release soldiers and machines of war. The Terrans were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, but they did not run. A deep rumble echoed across the sky. Everyone looked up. A second fleet appeared, dark silhouettes rising from behind Earth's moon. Lyra stepped back in shock. "Is that more enemies?" Hale smiled slightly. "No, those are ours." The Terran Defense Armada arrived, massive heavily armed ships painted with blue Earth markings. They moved like iron giants, rising from the darkness of space, weapons glowing. For the first time the alien refugees felt hope. General Marin's voice boomed across all comm channels. "Commander Hale, hold your line. We take the skies from here." The Terran ships opened fire. Bright white beams cut through the darkness, hitting enemy cruisers with deadly accuracy. Explosions lit up the high atmosphere like a second sun. The battle changed in a heartbeat. The enemy fleet began to fall back, struggling under the sudden assault. Their formations broke apart. Their flagship tried to retreat, engines burning. "They're running," Arden shouted. Hale shook his head. "They're trying to regroup. We must finish this." Above them, the Terran fleet chased the enemy ships deeper into orbit. Flames and debris streaked across the sky. Lyra watched it all with wide, glowing eyes. Something inside her was breaking, not from fear but from understanding. Humans were fighting a war they didn't start, protecting a people they didn't know, risking their home for strangers. And they were doing it without hesitation. Finally, the last enemy ship exploded in a burst of light. Silence returned to the battlefield. Earth had won. Terran soldiers cheered, hugging each other with relief. Some fell to their knees from exhaustion. Others sat down, staring at the sky in disbelief. Lyra slowly approached Hale. "You saved us," she whispered. Hale shook his head. "Not just you. We saved what was right." Lyra's voice trembled. "We will never forget this. Your kind, your world, has earned a place in our hearts forever." Hale extended his hand. "Then let this be the start of something new." Lyra gently placed her glowing hand in his. A new alliance was born in the middle of a ruined battlefield. Humans had chosen compassion over fear, courage over safety, honor over survival. They had stood between the weak and danger, no matter the cost. And across the galaxy, rumors would soon spread. Earth protected those who needed help. And if you threatened the innocent, humanity would stand in your way. Forever.